Right, good morning, gentlemen. The morning after the night before, as they say. Fantastic news. Spurs are one of the most influential footballing sides in Europe, nay, the world. I am, of course, in a state of compacted misery. I feel like a near relative has died, and that people have been walking over my grave. Ange finished his presser with a joke about you're going to have to put up with me for a little bit, Law. And that actually made me physically sick. So I'm not in tremendous spirits. I'm able to hold two thoughts in my head at the same time, though. I love Spurs and I want him gone. So I'm able to sleep pretty well. How are we, gentlemen? And what did you think of the game, Chris?
I thought that a win is a win. I thought it was a good performance. Yeah, I commented in the group chat last night that over two legs, Eintracht Frankfurt didn't generally impress me.
No.
I thought we should probably have won the first leg 3-1 had it not been for the Bergval effort against the crossbar and some wasteful finishing. So throughout the 180 minutes, I thought we were the better team. It was a disciplined performance, yet it asks the question, where have those performances and tactical changes been for the last 38 games? Because, and there's another thing as well, players can turn it on when they want to for themselves and not at the coach's discretion. So sometimes you see teams that have checked out and they're not playing for the manager, but equally there's games where the team take it upon themselves to get over the finishing line. And I think it became apparent to all in Spurs shirts last night that they were two games potentially away from the final. And I think that was the signs last night that they did it for themselves. But equally, it showed that a team without Son in doesn't miss anything. And I think Tell came into the side last night in the Son position. And I think he acquitted himself well and showed that our South Korean aging rock star is anything but a rock star nowadays. And a shout out to a doggy who I thought was good alongside both the centre backs. Van der Ven got us out of trouble when Etikite beat the high line early in the first half. But other than that, it wasn't like we tested their goalkeeper on umpteen occasions. We rattled the crossbar post and were an attacking joy. We got the job done, and that's all I can say.
Yeah, I very much felt, just picking up on the sort of players in spite of the coach thing, which obviously I would pick up because I've got a very focused discontent with the gaffer. But I thought they were playing for themselves, and I've got to say it again because I have to say what I see. I didn't see any Ange ball. I just saw an awful lot of determined lads fighting for dear life. I thought it was, I wouldn't say it was an agricultural or mechanical performance, but it was pretty workmanlike on occasions. And that's where I thought the discipline came in, that they were very conscious of not leaving the back door open, if that makes sense. Whereas I think Ange ball is very much like, well, we have the door swinging, so sometimes it's going to be shut even if it isn't bolted. So from that perspective, and this isn't me, looking desperately to dig Ange out. I think that's we've discovered at this stage that's kind of not a complicated task. But I very much felt that they were playing for themselves and for the pride of the job of wearing the badge and blah 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 blah. And it's a big tournament for them. I don't mean that dismissively, but it is a big tournament. But Frankfurt weren't up to it. They weren't up to it. They flattered in London, and they floundered back in the fatherland, at the risk of over alliterating. But yeah, so Tony, what were your thoughts? I think Chris has pretty much summed up a lot of the feelings that I had, I would say, anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with both what both said there. What impressed me more than anything else last night was the sheer. I think virtually to a man, apart from one player, which I'm sure we'll dig out in a minute, they got their foot stuck in. Every time there was a pass, they got their foot stuck in. They stopped the pass. They disrupted. Everything they did was the reason why I think that, and certainly in this game as opposed to the first game, the reason why the Germans weren't very good in this game is because we just simply didn't allow them to be good. And we refused to allow them to play. Every time they tried to play a ball, a foot got in there. Every time in the midfield, that midfield was about as strong as I've seen it all season. They just didn't allow them to play through. And that was what was really impressive. The most impressive to me was the fact that it seemed to me, for want of a better phrase, there was a game plan. There was absolutely a game plan. B, after about 2 or 3 attempts, we decided we're not going to play the ball out from the back anymore, and we're going to hoof it, which was great to see, because sometimes you just have to go with the flow and recognise the fact that's not working in a game. So let's do that instead. So that was really, really positive. And I agree with you about Mathis Tel. I thought that was his best game for us by a long stretch. Absolutely superb. But not worth 65 million, but certainly worth a punt at a reasonable price.
Yeah, I thought Tel accredited himself well. No two complaints about that. I thought everybody had a good game. There was nobody really poor, but I just feel that it was such a departure from my usual playing style. I've seen a couple of people in places, and good luck to them. It's going to be a very busy day for them. They're going to be very excitable. Crediting Ange for his change in tactics, I don't buy that for a nanosecond. And I can only revert to the comments I made previously, Your Honour, in respect of that. I think these lads actually, not so much the fear of God, but the daylight dawning of where they were in this competition, and then wanting to make sure that they didn't blow it. So there was a lot of self-preservation going on, and other things, like I say, which aren't necessarily Ange Ball type elements to his style of management. He was clearly very touched after the game. He was desperately trying to sort of you're not crying, I'm crying sort of routine, which was good to see. A normal human being was how I describe him. It clearly meant something to him as well. Maybe this will bring them all together, and could be the beginning of something wonderful and intimate and beautiful. On the other hand, it could just be a fumble in a car park, around the back of the pub. I don't know. I have no faith in the guy. That's the problem that you've got with me. I wouldn't say I'm a hostile witness, but I'm certainly an unreliable witness as far as he is concerned.
I think last night was no better example of the saying, one swallow doesn't make a summer. A single positive event or sign doesn't guarantee a positive or lasting outcome. And I think there's no better evidence of that. And again,
we'll see. Sorry, go on. Sorry.
Again, the thing that comes to my mind is, why haven't you done this in the previous games? Why all of a sudden did we change tact and change approach? And last night wasn't gallivanting, gung ho, high press football. Far from it. It was very cautious. And another one who noticeably had an impact on the game. I'm not his biggest fan, and I've called him out a number of times, but I thought Bentancur, almost sitting as a defensive holding player, he was breaking up the play and just pinging the ball out. And let's not get too carried away. But in the same breath, we've got to think, if we can't get past Otto Glint over 2 legs, whose population is less than what our stadium holds, we've never going to have a better opportunity to get to a final of a European competition.
Yeah, I mean, we can't take anything away from last night. That would just be, sort of peevish and a bit. But the reality is, you mentioned the size of the opponent's country or whatever. This is the equivalent of England playing Macedonia.
Yeah.
And you can only play who's in front of you. But the reality is, and I hate to be the party pooper here again, but the reality is that what are we going to do in the league? Because we're the same mob that went down on our knees and took it from various different angles from Wolverhampton Wanderers, and we're the same bunch of clowns that are currently drifting just atop the relegation zone. And those are the kind of, you wake up and you realize that your world isn't an absolute toilet. You're actually living somewhere quite nice. And there's sort of those reality checks. So I don't know. I mean, the thing is that obviously the mission, the aim of the exercise now is to win this competition, because there's nothing more heartbreaking than kind of having a go but not quite getting there. And I can already feel that this will be somewhat a narrative will be somewhat penned that he had a good run in Europe, which is all very well and commendable, but everything else has been a skip fire.
Daniel would be ecstatic at the thought of creeping in via the back door to the financial successes that Champions League football offers, wouldn't he? After the shit show that has been the 2024-2025 season. And big clubs still make change. And I hold Eric Ten Hag as an example at Man United, who in the space of 2 seasons won them the League Cup and the FA Cup. More success than this club's had in the last 24 years. But they identified he wasn't the man. They got rid. And regardless of whether we win this or don't, the same needs to be done for Ange, because he's not the right fit for the club.
No, I don't. In truth, I mean, and people can have this argument with me or not. I don't care. I don't think he's a good fit for this division. I think he's woefully a misfit for this division. And just to say, I'm not on the rum and cokes already. I've run out of bloody bottled water, so I'm drinking Diet Pepsi, which is a bit of a weird thing first thing in the morning. But
after your exploits after the game last night, I thought you were putting some lead back in the pencil.
What?
You sent me and Tony a text outlining what you were going to do after the result.
Oh yes, that was a throwaway remark on a private chat group, which, you know, sometimes you have to explain to people the difference between a throwaway remark on a private chat group and what you actually might be doing at the time, which I think, if I remember correctly, I was eating some toast. And
Chris, what stays in a private? What goes in the private chat group stays in the private chat group.
Apart from venereal disease, because that shit will follow you around forever.
I have this habit of getting masticating confused with something else. Sorry.
Yeah, well, just stop doing it with your mouth open is the best advice I can give you there.
Mrs.
Who are for now. So we are agreed. Some of us more through gritted teeth than others. That was a great result last night. Germans weren't great, but who cares? Them. It was all about
Maddison
Spurs.
Was incredibly brave for his penalty because he knew that was coming. He knew that was coming because it was the only obvious thing.
Amazed me the duration it took for that penalty to be awarded. As I text you,
it was a one.
Madison's played the ball.
Penalty.
Bloke's gone completely through it. Yeah,
mate, Stonewall penalty. It was one look Stonewall penalty. Absolutely end on.
No, I totally agree, and I do feel, and I've said this before, that the problem isn't the technology. The technology is very good. The problem is the application of the technology, and no better example than when they get it right, yet they make a bloody meal of it. The idea that you can't just look at that and go, well, I'm a professional referee. I get paid to make these decisions. Yes, that's a penalty. Next question. But no, we have to go to the, and it's all transcribed back from the original Aramaic, and then it has to go to the boys in the lab, and then we have to hold it up to the light and taste a little bit off the corner. Just get on with it, But I think they're making it's kind of they're justifying their position, that well, that's what we do with specialists.
Your mic's gone off, mate.
My mic.
Your mic is gone. You have gone. He has gone. We have silenced him for once, Chris. We have finally silenced him.
No, I can hear him.
Oh, you're back in now. You can hear him now.
Yeah,
you're back.
You're just doing your
no, you generally went silent there. You generally went serious. You generally went silent.
Well, we'll see when we play the tape back, won't we?
Reminds me of this reminds me of those two old blokes who sit on the balcony in the Muppets arguing.
Statler and Waldorf, isn't it? Yeah.
We've never referenced them before. Who are they?
No, never.
I thought it was terrible. Actually, quite good.
It was awful.
I'm coming again next week.
Who is this Chris B?
Who is this Chris B? He looks terrible. Looks like a degenerate. Should run for president. So what do we think is going to happen next then in our next game? I mean, I wish we had more to discuss about that game, but the reality is, I think that we were 14 minutes in, and we've kind of agreed that we got all the blocks in. People were putting their lives on the line. there was a concerted effort for, to do the right thing, opposed to follow a plan, because the plan doesn't exist. I mean, I noticed Ange wasn't talking about our football. He did kind of hint that, well, this is what happens when you get all the boys back in the barracks, and he's got a full squad to pick from, which, yeah, okay, but didn't we have the same?
But that doesn't
didn't we
tally
have
up
the
with
same?
Ange ball, does it?
No, and
Ange
didn't we?
ball
And
then?
didn't
What about
and
Ange
didn't we?
ball, you know?
But didn't we have the same group of players to choose from when we played Wolves? I mean,
More
but
or
nobody
less.
wants to hear
Yeah,
that.
more or
It's
less.
all about woohoo and cartwheeling and balloons and lollipops.
What I thought was interesting in the lead up to the game was the comments coming out from Mickey van der Ven that he wants to play every game. He's fit. He doesn't understand why he's being not given the opportunity to do so. So again, that sort of asked questions of Ange. And then there was an article I shared with you both. Was it John Cross or somebody?
Of the Mirror.
Some guy you came back and said was a legend, and he put an article.
Oh no, that was Duncan Castles, who I said is a legend.
Yeah.
With a sort of it's difficult to perceive irony and sarcasm, but he throws up mega exclusives probably once or twice, 3 times a season, and I have no idea why anybody is paying him at all, because it's all total confection. What was he saying again? Just remind me, because I might have had a couple of drinks before my Horlicks.
After the training that they'd gone back to the hotel, Ange had left on his own, went back, ate on his own, didn't engage with any of his staff, didn't engage with his team, and he was sort of saying how odd his behaviour had been, and it had been commented on by various people throughout the club.
Yeah, I mean, listen, look, we don't know. I come out with random sort of ITK bits that echo that sort of thing, shall we say, that aren't necessarily headline-worthy exclusives, but are used perhaps better to frame other information. And that is certainly one of those things. But because it's Castles, I can't really take it seriously. But I'll comment on it, and I'll say it wouldn't surprise me at all. And maybe it worked. Maybe they instead of feeling pressured, they then sort of all clung together. Maybe that was part of the plan. I mean, who
was it just lightning in a bottle? Was it just lightning in a bottle that it all just happened in one game?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know. I mean, what I do know is that he's a divisive character. He's unsettled numerous players. He doesn't, to me, have the depth of experience that's required at this level, and it is a high bar. I mean, we make sort of disparaging remarks about the Premier League not really being this great this season and all the rest of it occasionally, but it's a tough gig. It is absolutely is a tough gig. And I just don't think he's cut out for it. It's nothing personal. Personal is when I make remarks about his size, or the silly things that he says, or the way that he twitches and moves his head around when he's feeling particularly paranoid and nauseous in front of the press. But as an actual coaching individual, I don't think he's up to the job. I really don't. But like you say, it could have been lightning in a bottle.
I think he looked last night, mate. He looked like a man on death row who just been granted a reprieve.
Yeah. He didn't look happy. He didn't look happy to me. He looked far more relieved. And when he spoke on the pitch side to the club cabbage, and he was asking him, giving him the old underarm bold questions. Like I say, there was a little bit of a glottal thing there, and I think he was pretty close to choking up. And I'm not saying that to mock him. I think the emotion absolutely enveloped him after the game, because he realised that he wasn't going to be publicly humiliated. He realised that he wasn't going to be churning out the same, "Oh, we didn't quite get into our blah blah blah." And relying on the same thing. And I've used this phrase all the time, but he is very much like a drunk with a lamppost. He's using it more for support than illumination. And that's the cycle that he's got into. So for him, this was a massive reprieve, and it must be a huge weight off of his mind, to put it mildly, because he must have been expecting this to be a superstar level kicking. had they lost last night. So all credit to the players. All credit to the players. I mean, they really did get their act together. If they can harness some of that discipline and some of that consistency, then there might be a way of salvaging a bit more than just these two legs last night.
And I raised this point last time, the last couple of things. Even today, people are going, "Oh well, see what happens when you've got your full squad." And it's just like, do me a favour. Just do me a bloody favour. Guess what? You can change tactics if you don't have a full squad. You can play to your strengths of the people you have available. It's not rocket science, this, you know. Oh, and people go, "Oh, well, you're not a manager, so what do you know?" Actually, I'm not, but I have done coaching badges, and I know exactly what you do when you need to do it, and that's put players in the right places to start with. And if you realise that you don't have the full strength squad, then you change your tactics to accommodate it. So you don't play a suicidal high line with the people that are B or C listers at best, who are never going to be the same. So please don't tell me just because we won that, because we had all our guys back and everything like that. No, it wasn't because of that. It was because the team found a way to be disciplined. Now, whether that was through Ange or whatever, fine, good. Don't it's if he's done that way, if he really did come to that conclusion on his own, and he's had a bit of a mindset change, fantastic, great stuff. Bring it on. But let's just put that out there. That don't give me that rubbish about, "Oh, we would have been so much better if we'd had a full squad." No, I'm sorry, I'm not having that. Absolutely not having that, because you don't know, because you don't know what the results would have been. But secondly, when we did have a full squad, we weren't exactly ripping things up, were we?
Well, let's just. I think you're being too kind there, because we don't need to worry about what ifs and whats and ands, because he's lost so many bloody games, some with a full squad, some without, and some before there were significant injuries, and some during, and still losing some after. So I think we kind of know what's going on. As far as you're concerned about, what do you know? I don't know about your badges, but I know you've done your hours. You've done more than 10,000 hours. That's the level of involvement you have in the game, and I like to think all of us do. Most fans are pretty well qualified. We do get the nitwits that turn up, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I hope we can get into top 4 this season," and just mindless drivel based upon nothing. But we've put our hours in, and I say it's one of those yardsticks in life. When you want to be a medical guy, an ambulance, you want to be all sorts of different things. You need to have put your 10,000 hours in. That's part of the language, and we've done that. We know what we're talking about. We understand football, and we're allowed to tell people that, "Well done for your little contribution, but I am going to respectfully ignore you because I think you're a nincompoop." But no, I think the odds of him having had some sort of epiphany and deciding to jiggle things, I don't think he's got it within him. I genuinely don't, because you then go back and say, but yesterday he was saying, "Oh, well, I don't give a damn what anybody thinks, because if you think I'm a better manager on the strength of winning one game, then you're a noodle. You don't bring anything intellectually stimulating to me. You're just saying words." And the reality is, we've got an awful lot of Ange football. I'll use those wording carefully. We've got an awful lot of Ange football in order to make a judgment on this guy. Not a perception, a judgment, because the facts are in, the scores are written down, the history books have them, they're locked in. And you're not a very good manager at this level. That's the reality. And we've seen that borne out by a win, points per game win percentage, which is the worst of any Spurs coach ever. Mic drop. But it is the worst ever. So if he's going to talk to us about anything after this one victory against a mediocre, and I think we all expected a little bit more from Frankfurt side, good luck to him. Good luck to him. I don't want him here next season. I don't want him anywhere near us, even if we need another toilet cleaner. Don't want him.
I think Chris, you made a really good point earlier. In that, if we underestimate Bodo Glimt, we underestimate them at our peril. Because you don't go to Lazio and do what you did to Lazio, and you don't do to Lazio on your home ground what Lazio this season have been very, very strong. You know, so you don't do that to a team unless you're pretty darn decent. You know, so let's also not get too carried away. Oh, it's only Bodo Glimt. Yeah, okay, it's a semi-final. They're there for a reason. They didn't fluke it.
I've got to say the Man United game was entertaining. I was engaged with you the next time.
That was insane.
Like, when it went to when Leon went 4-2 up, you thought, oh, this is done. And then who was it? Ferdinand was like, oh yeah, you watch Harry Maguire's go get a header. He absolutely did. And you think it could be a final of two teams who have been absolutely abysmal this season in United and Spurs, with two coaches who have been absolutely abysmal. And there's a chance for one club to pull something from the ashes and to get themselves championship football next season. It is absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, it was. But I think if you're interested in comparing the coaches, I think there's more about Amorim though, and his record speaks for itself.
He's a young lad, isn't he? He's a 40-year-old guy. And I think if you stick with him, then he will build it if he's given time. But our guy's going to be 60 in July, and not being ageist or oldest or disrespectful to my elders, as I respect both H and yourself. But he's not a man to be building a long-term project around.
Amorim has Sporting, you know. Yeah, he's managed Sporting, hasn't he? So you know, there in itself tells you an awful lot. And who played at Sporting? Was it Marcus Edwards?
Well, yeah. If he gets promoted tomorrow, we get $3.5 million.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
There was this
very nice.
Another one of the Levy masterstrokes.
There were these calls signing Edwards, how good he is, but he's not. He's a championship player at best, and he's hardly lit up the lower league. So any hope of him being the generational talent that we were trying to persuade people he was just another pipe dream.
Well, I hate to throw another scrambling, fighting body under the bus, but there strikes me to be a little bit of this Marcus Edwards business about him being the next insert name. This was just before Windy. You know, that Chris Miller guy who was obsessed with young boys in shorts, just before he came out as a massive, rabid, check your preference, BLM lunatic, and disappeared behind his Patreon paywall. Since he's gone and he's less of a noise on social media, we're hearing less of this. And what we are getting is praise for people having watched Lucas Bergvall and gone, wow, there's a really good footballer in there, because we're not retarded. Well, and that guy spoke down to absolutely everybody and told us all this stuff that he knew and he'd seen because he was hanging around sniffing people's shin pads, and it was all baloney. And he's not a very nice person. Pro-Palestinian, homosexualist lunatic. And I'm very free with that. It's about him, incidentally, and not about those particular things. But he was a deeply unpleasant person, and some of the stuff that he came out with. But that's all gone. That's all gone. He's behind his paywall, living off of 27p a week. But the reality is that people are actually able to look at footballers and make up their own decisions, make up their own minds. And like I said to you, because they put the hours in. People have put the hours in. You sitting there watching TV at home, that's part of your 10,000 hours. And suddenly you've got a qualification because you know what you're talking about.
Well, the world's realigning, and we say, well done, J.K. Rowling. And that's all I'm going to say on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But nobody likes all this. It's all Orange Man bad. But the reality is that there will be fewer very confused children, minors being hurt by nut jobs who have very dark and sinister motives, and it's a brilliant thing. It's a breath of fresh air that common sense is being enforced, which is a tragic thing to say, but that's the reality. It's being enforced because the lunatics are being given their marching orders from the asylum managerial suite. where they've been holding court, and Stonewall in particular. Got to give them a special shout out. Their whole empire of deceit is crumbling, and it is deceit. These are children's lives, and it's coming to football where even Daniel Levy gives them free advertising space, and it's an absolute abomination. It really is. So you can have your L, you can have your G, and you can have your B, but everything else goes in the skip, and is liberally coated in petrol before we start throwing matches in it for fun. Because it's absolutely an abomination. Isn't nasty enough language, but I'm very pleased to see the back of all of them.
If you ain't got a willy, your name's not Billy.
And there we go, folks. After a thoroughbred rant from me, we have it just
Good.
how it ought to be. The sort of thing you can put on the back of a beer mat whilst half cut.
Yeah, good. Was it good luck and keep me Tottenham?
Yeah. And before the lawyers and the police arrive, I'd like to wish you all a splendid afternoon.
Yeah. Just by the way, these are the views of Harold Hotspur, not the persona, not the person.
Yeah, exactly. My fictitious persona holds these extremist views, and there's no need for people to send in piano or directions to the nearest.
Personally, but the man behind the persona is a gay black Jewish lesbian with one leg.
Oh my days! Where's my leg? Just a hint of Harlem to the Jewish voice there. So where do we go next then? Looking for people to hang. No. Where do we go next in respect of Spurs? Because we've made this great leap. We're then going to be obviously looking at that game a bit close to the time. When is that game? Is it in a week's time or 10 days time? It'll be soon enough, I would have thought.
First leg's 1st of May, isn't it? So
Yeah.
it's 4 days after Anfield away, where Liverpool will arguably win the league. So what we go do in that game, we go put out the embryos, put out the youth team, because
he doesn't like kids. To his credit, based on the last conversation.
Steady on, H. Steady on.
I just said that Ange Postecoglou was not a paedophile. I think that's come on.
I didn't realise that needed to be referenced.
Just because Rolf Harris doesn't mean every other Australian is. Well, the clues are all there. Two little boys.
I mean, if you can't say somebody isn't a wife beater, we live in a pretty sad society.
Well, I don't know. I'd turn that round and say that comes from a position of everybody is until they're proven not to be. So.
And this is how we will conduct things in the new order.
He's gone, Chris. That's it. He's gone.
At least the trains will run on time, lads.
The medication's worn off.
Mate, the train has left the station. I tell you,
never. It's got no coal in the engine. But how do we think? How do we think we're going to do in the league? Do you think there's something there that we can pull out of that Frankfurt experience? That do or die, that focus, concentration.
We got Forest, haven't we? We got Forest on
Monday. Yeah,
Monday night. I do. I mean, it's at home, so that will help. I just do wonder how much that yesterday would have taken out of us, because it was.
No. Yeah, we'd love to turn up for Forest, but we'd be a little bit tired.
I know. It was from my perspective. But that's the thing. That's what happens. It tends to happen after European games. The only good thing is it's a day later. So, I think there's probably less of that as an excuse, but I just wonder if it's going to be one of those, because we've seen it all the time with Spurs, haven't we? Playing Europe,
my elbow is dirty.
I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying it. All I'm saying is that's the sort of thing that typically tends to happen, doesn't it? Is that we have a European game, we play like dog shit afterwards. So,
well, look at Aston Villa. Aston Villa are a very good example of not quite understanding how the demands of Europe can get to you. I mean, they've really been up against it, and they did tremendously well in Europe instantly.
You'll be judging Tottenham with a team more to their level, though, won't you? As you're up against a Premiership team. We've already commented on Frankfurt weren't great, but equally, it's Nuno coming back to stick two fingers up to the Tottenham fans and Daniel Levy. His reputation is at stake. His ego's at stake. He's going to want to come back and do a number on us. With Murillo at centre back, with Aina at right back, Milenkovic, a proper old fashioned centre back. They've got some players capable of hurting us. So
Yeah.
we're
Well, they have
getting,
gone off the boil, though, haven't they? They have gone off the
Yeah,
boil.
they
quite a lot
have gone off
recently,
the boil.
haven't
they're going to want to try and retain that Champions League spot because they could drop down to 5th or 6th depending on fixtures this week. So it's a must-win
But then
game.
Chelsea, the good thing about that is Chelsea are not exactly ripping it up either, you know. So I think they're in with a good shout. If they can keep, I think Forest deserve a Champions League spot this year because they've done so well. But you know what you deserve and what you get are two different things. So you know who knows what's going to happen. But I just can't help thinking there's that kind of, it's a European game. We then play like crap. You know, I'd love to be proven wrong.
Forest have lost their last two, which bizarrely were against the rather ineffectual Everton and Aston Villa themselves. Their last win was Manchester United. They beat 1-0 Ipswich and Manchester City. Well, they were still imploding. So we'll see what we get. But Spurs, 1 win in 5. So there you are, Mr. Postecoglou.
Against the dog shit relegated Southampton side.
Yeah, exactly. So Bournemouth drawn, Fulham loss, Chelsea loss, Wolves loss. It doesn't bode well for anybody there. So Nottingham Forest definitely need to have a conversation with themselves along and around the lines of, are we really going to fizzle out and miss the delights of the top tier of European football? Because if they don't get their act together, that's exactly what's going to happen to them. Bless them.
Can I ask you what was your thoughts on this penalty thing, where Tell's got the ball lining up to take it, and all of a sudden you see Postecoglou going Dom, and it's like, what was going on there? I mean, that sort of thing should be sorted out in training. That should be absolutely sorted out before you go anywhere near the pitch. You don't do it like that because that just looks like you don't know what the hell you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any. Curiously enough, I don't have anything positive to say. I think you've absolutely summed it up there. I think a lot of what goes on at this club is a little bit chilling in terms of the human error side of things. Penalty takers should have been through a process in the calm of an office or a restroom or whatever, with everybody sat around talking, and then you get a feel of what the mood is with the different characters involved, and then you get people who volunteer, and you get people that you say to them, you should be volunteering. And so everybody knows. That's the other thing as well, because nobody wants handbags with people scrapping over the ball. And do you really want your coach shouting, Dom? It's like the old Alan Partridge. Dan.
It wasn't a good look, was it? Because it just
because it's just scruffy. It's just scruffy, and it's fuzzy thinking, which I think has defined this guy.
The obvious concern was that we had Solanke had scored once since the 4th of January, and then we had Tell, who in his last game, guess what, scored a penalty. So it's such a crucial spot kick in such a crucial game to our season. Had it gone wrong, that would have been further egg on his face, because you're then questioning his tactical nous and ability. Do you go with the player in form or the player who's bang out of form but has historically been your penalty taker? But if Son had been on the pitch, neither of them would have been having this conversation because it would have reverted to him.
Yeah, I mean the business with Sonny. I mean, I did on one of my short things there. The idea that this guy was ever a deserved and earned rank of captain is now completely in the dustbin. It was a political appointment. His foot prevented him from playing. I've never heard such a ambiguous injury from a football manager before. It's a bit like saying, well, he's just not quite right. What does that mean? Any chance of putting that into English or an other language that somebody can actually make sense of? Because you talk like that when you go to the doctor, and then the doctor says, oh yeah, you've got a sprained ankle. You know, they convert it into something that's a bit more intelligent. But this business of him, so his foot isn't right, okay, but he's not wearing a protective boot, and even if he was, he could still go up the gangplank and get onto an aeroplane. Why wasn't the captain there? Because he wouldn't be missed. I don't take any pleasure from this at all. It's as simple as that. He would not be missed, so he didn't go. which is rather depressing. I'd rather the captaincy was given to somebody who really cared, and even if you don't like them or whatever, it doesn't matter. But a decision made again is soberly, in the quiet, the sanity off of the pitch, like when you select who's going to be your penalty taker. If they gave it to Maddison, or if they gave it to somebody, I don't know, Vicario, who I don't like Vicario, for example, give it to him. If he's a big voice and people are listening to him, then give him the bloody badge. But the idea that that captaincy thing is with a guy based upon how many vanilla flavored ice creams or whatever he sells in Korea, or whatever, is just a bit spurious to me.
I'm surprised Bentancur's never been anywhere near the conversation for a captain, being a more senior player who has got the experience on both international level and won accolades at Juventus. You look around at the rest of the squad and he's got credentials that not a lot have. And he sits there in the midfield in front of the back four. So he's got good vision around what's happening on the pitch. And you look, and there's not really, we've said time and time again, there's no men. So we've got very few to choose from. But the one we chose was purely for commercial purposes.
I think the problem with Bentancur may have been that your captain isn't much use to you if he's been sent off, or you have to substitute him because he's on a yellow and he looks like he wants another one. I'm just being cynical there, but I don't think that's entirely irrelevant. I think that's probably a consideration. Like I say, Maddison would probably be a more obvious candidate, because he does within that group have a level of maturity and this, that, and the other, and it probably wouldn't do his consideration for a steady international call up any harm either.
Probably something with Maddison, he'd end up looking like bloody Bruno Fernandes at Man United, whiny man-child, flapping his arms around all the time and moaning about everything.
I think
captains have to have quiet dignity about them in some respects, but obviously can give it when they need to give it to other players. But I think when you're talking to referees or when you're trying to communicate, you need to have some sort of level of authority. Yeah, and I'm entirely convinced that Maddison is that person.
No, I think over time, as he matures in 2 or 3 years from now, I think Bergvall could have a bit of captain qualities, as I think he holds his head high. He demands a lot from people, and he's really matured and come on leaps and bounds this season.
Well, I think one of the things with the captain there, and you've touched on it absolutely, Tony, is he's heavy is the head that carries the crown, and you need somebody there. I think Bergvall is going to be an absolute sensation. I mean, I'm not talking about next week, but he strikes me, the European mindset, the way he carries himself, the way he's elevated and enhanced his game since he's come into the Premier League. He's just been a standout player. Not been perfect all the time, but then human beings aren't.
But then begs the question: is that because of Ange or in spite of Ange? Because obviously we know, for everything we've said, he doesn't coach, he doesn't train the players. There's very little tactics. He doesn't motivate. So then, really, what we're saying is that's all been on Bergvall, him doing it himself. And generating all that extra experience and that level of improvement that's come from Bergvall as opposed to anywhere else.
Well, of course, I would say this. First of all, option B, without any consideration of option A at all. And secondly, I'd say if you gave that player, Bergvall in this instance, to the likes of Jose Mourinho or somebody who knew what they were doing, you would then see the player enhanced even further. And he would give him the guidance, and I'm talking about career guidance. And I know it was interesting, that we have impressions and understandings of players, but with Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, we had the thing where Mourinho joked, the guy's a nuisance. He's definitely going to go into management. He's always asking questions. And that, to me, a man's brain showing that it's working, and that there's the pulses are going around and the motor neurons are firing. That's an exciting thing to be around someone like that. And that was another credit to that player's.
Absolutely. Talk about Mourinho just very briefly. There was a story, and whether this is apocryphal or not, but it's certainly I've read it a couple of times now, where after a particularly poor performance, in the dressing room, he bawled out Sonny really badly, absolutely took him to the cleaners in front of everybody else. And Sonny was quite upset. But Mourinho afterwards, after they left, he then phoned him later and he said, "I'm sorry I had to do that, but I had to show you that the captain is the leader of this team, and I ball out the leader of the team to put fear into the other players."
Yeah,
that's a manager.
Yeah, and we've heard similar tales of scenting their territory, marking down what the difference between right and wrong, or where expectations lie, with coaches going back to Bill Nicholson, where there was a clear chain of command. Messaging was biblically simple. I'm very happy with you. I'm very angry with you. And it's do as I do. Don't worry about anything else. These are your instructions. I'm in charge. Because the moment you start doing anything by committee, it turns into absolute chaos. And human existence has shown us this. And don't invade Russia in the winter is the other one.
Exactly. What's it say? Nobody ever wins anything by committee.
No,
especially with our leadership committee.
Who sends out Matthias Tell to who's on loan to speak to the press after we've lost? Do me a favour. I mean, honestly, there must be fairer people being investigated for bullying in boarding schools. You know what I mean? It's just absolutely insane. Absolutely insane.
But
any more for any more? 45 minutes in, I'm just concerned that some of our audience may be wanting to take their overdose and free themselves from this desperate charade of real life.
Only to say that I agree with you about Bergvall. I think Bergvall has definitely got it there in the making. But the next question will be, how long can we keep him for? Because you know what Levy likes to do? He likes to cash in on his assets.
That's why it's so vital that we go the whole way in this competition and win it.
Yeah,
absolutely. But that unfortunately has been the familiar serenade, hasn't it? Which is why Harry Kane is still bumbling around, hoping to get a bit of silverware before somebody dies. And Sonny, for all of his absolutely fantastic contributions to the club, hasn't got any bloody silverware to his name, unless you include the Audi Cup, of course.
Hey, don't knock it. It's a trophy, mate.
What time are you going into space?
I've always thought you were an astronaut, Tony. It's now been proven.
You do realise that you had to actually be a woman in a blue jumpsuit to get in on that thing. You can't just dress like one and show up.
All I want to ride the penis.
It's me.
Mate, I want to ride the penis. That's what
I could see you kissing the floor. Oh no, that was a dream I had. Sorry. But right, have we any more for any more? Is that an unreasonable request?
Until Tuesday, until we can discuss the Forest performance, it's all pretty quiet. We're obviously rejoicing last night, and we're getting over the fireworks, the pyrotechnics, and all the flashing lights.
We're one game closer to winning something for a bloody change. And wouldn't it be nice to be able to turn around to everybody else and just say, "Fuck you"?
It would be lovely. It'd be lovely. I mean, I've never used that language to another human being before, as you can imagine.
Bullshit! Nasty old cop there.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. We enjoyed ourselves immensely. The game itself wasn't too bad at all. If you want to subscribe. Those are going up nicely. If you want to hit like, that would be tremendous. And do join in the comment section where all the smart kids are hanging out together. That's it for now. Good luck. Keep it on. You buy that, you buy anything.
Yeah.